Welcome, everyone. Good morning. And good morning to those who are gathered here in the sanctuary and to all who are joining online today. We begin this morning with a musical prelude by John Mayhood. Thank you, John. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Charlottesville. My name is Angela Orbaugh, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm pleased to be leading worship this morning with Reverend Tim Timerson, music director Scott DeVoe, accompanist John Mayhood, and the UU Seville Choir. I'd also like to welcome Amy Wissaker and Matt Hartung as our guest musicians today as well. And Reverend Leah is here too. This sanctuary was built over 70 years ago on the homeland of the Monacan people and was once cared for by enslaved people from Africa and their descendants. We honor all who have dwelt here and all in our congregation whose lives led to this moment of our gathering. I now invite us to take a moment to greet others. Those online, you may unmute, and those here in the sanctuary or in the social hall are welcome to greet your neighbors, especially those you may not know.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning from the Eastern Shore.
Good morning from the Eastern Shore.
Good morning from Charlottesville.
Thank you.
Good morning, friends.
Good morning.
Sharon, if you're there, thank you for the tip about the money problems of the Afghan family. I talked with Tim about it, and I think he's going to ask for donations.
We offer a special welcome to newcomers and invite you to join us for fellowship after the service in the social hall that way. Feel free to use one of our red coffee mugs, and UUCville members and friends, you are reminded to offer a warm welcome to anyone that you see with a red mug. Now, there is also a live stream right now happening of the service in the social hall. Everyone's welcome here in the sanctuary. Social hall can be a great option if you'd like to have a roomier space. Many thanks to everyone who's helping us share worship both here and online. Our greeters, our ushers, our hospitality team. Special thanks to our AV tech team led by guru Rachel Buckland. Now we have greetings from board member Aksha Carrier.
Good morning. Here. It's lovely to be here in this sanctuary where it's calm and we're surrounded by our friends. But if we go outside, it's not like that. People who have always been marginalized and disenfranchised are under attack. People of color, immigrants, transgender, LGBTQ people, in a more intense way than has been true for many years. But it's also true that people who for years have felt like they were part of the system are suffering the same kinds of attacks. Doctors, lawyers, educators, voters, people who rely on Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, and all of us. So this is a tough time for everybody. I mean, you can hear it's a tough time for all of us. This is not something we can face by ourselves. We need to be part of a community to do anything about this. And for many of us, this is the community that we have. We don't have many, many places to turn to. So we need this place. We need it to be strong. We need it to be radical. We need it to be engaged with our community and taking action where we can. And in order for that to happen, we need to be part of it and engaged with it and support it and open up some window of possibility for us for the future. Because if we're not engaged, if we simply wait, things are not going to turn out well. You know, history tells us this does not end well. So I am urging everybody to play a part. We don't actually know what part to play. It's hard to know. But together, we have a better chance of doing this than we do as individuals. So thank you.
Thank you, Aksha. Today's announcements. Are you new to the UU congregation of Charlottesville? Want to learn more about our congregation and Unitarian Universalism? You can join Reverend Tim and several lay leaders today at 12:15 right here in the sanctuary for our monthly newcomer circle. So grab some coffee, some popcorn, saw some great cookies out there, and join us back here at 12:15. Our new support group for people who have a loved one with dementia will also meet today, starting at 12:30 in the Summit House, room 2. All are welcome there. The UU Parenting Support Group, affectionately known as OOPS, will meet today as well at 12:30 in the lower hall 3. All parents are welcome, and you are encouraged to sign your children into Sunday's second hour, which will take place during the gathering. Now, next Sunday is a food sharing Sunday. So please remember to bring perishable and other food items as well as cleaning supplies to share with those in our congregation whose budgets are stretched. Parents of children in spirit play through 5th grade, please pick up your children from the children's worship in the church parlor at 12:15. A lot going on right after the service. So if you're not going to any of those, join us for coffee, conversation, popcorn, and cookies after the service in the social hall.
Thank you, Angela. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. Thank you for coming today. So our call to worship, which Angela and I will share with you, is from Libby Stoddard. We have come into this place of hope where our hearts and minds are opened to the future.
We have come into this sanctuary of justice, where we set aside our fear to name freely every oppression.
We have come into this community of love, where we know that no lives are insignificant.
We have come into this congregation of song, where we unite our voices in the somber and the beautiful melodies of life.
We'd now like to invite you to rise in body or spirit, speaking of song, and let's join in singing hymn number 1007. It's in the teal hymnal, but the lyrics will also be on the screen. There's a river flowing in my soul. Please rise.
Thank you, Scott. I now invite Jason Woodson to light our flaming chalice. Will you please join me in saying our chalice lighting words? We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. and doing the hand motions as our hand is the matchbook, our finger is the match. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open minds. This is the church of helping hands. This is the church of loving hearts.
Choir, my goodness, justice is rolling. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. And now, friends, let's join together in singing our children out to, let's see, what is it, K through? Spirit Play through 5th graders going to the parlor. So can we join in singing our children out? Oh, that's fine, John. No worries, no worries. Hey, you know what? If in congregational life, if you got just so many kids that can't all make it out in one chorus through, that's a good sign, you know? Come on. So friends, the UU congregation of Charlottesville will be kicking off its annual pledge drive on the first Sunday in March. And for the next few Sundays, I'm going to be inviting members of this congregation to come forward and just briefly tell us why they pledge and what the congregation means to them. And our first speaker is Andrew Allard. Andrew, the pulpit is yours.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
So Reverend Tim asked me to talk about what UUCville means to me and why I pledged last year. And the short answer is that Jimmy Gorham trapped me during last year's pledge drive, and he's a really good salesman. But of course, there's a deeper reason, one that has nothing to do with Jimmy's sales skills and everything to do with what the church means to me. Growing up, I was raised Catholic, well, sort of. My family wasn't very religious, like a lot of Catholics, but I at least went to Sunday school. And while Catholicism gave me a foundation in faith, I often found myself questioning rather than simply believing. And so my skeptical nature, my place in the church as a gay man, and my curiosity about other faith traditions eventually led me to Unitarian Universalism, where questioning isn't just allowed, it's encouraged. When I moved here to Charlottesville 2 years ago to start law school, I came to this congregation as a stranger, but I was never treated as one. From my very first visit, where I was invited to an impromptu game of badminton after the service, I have always felt welcome here. And over the years, through building friendships in the young adults group or singing with the choir, who have been very patient with me while my voice recovers from the flu, my sense of belonging at UUCville has only grown stronger. Today, many people, young adults especially, are burdened by feelings of loneliness and isolation. UUCville provides me and so many others with a spiritual refuge from a sometimes unwelcoming world. But none of that happens by accident. This community exists because of the generosity of its members who made it possible for newcomers like me to find a home here. I decided that it was my turn to return that generosity. Still, I wondered, how do I put a price on being a member of this congregation? Jimmy helped me find a number that worked, but ultimately, I don't think there's a single good answer to that question. And that's okay. As I've learned from being a UU, you don't need a single perfect answer. You just need to start where you are and do what you can. As Aksha so beautifully put it, UUCville reminds me that none of us have to go it alone. That's why I pledged, and I hope you all will too. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I really enjoyed hearing that. We are an interconnected community that cares for one another. Part of how we embody this care is making time each week to share our joys and sorrows we hold in our hearts. Everyone is invited to come forward as you wish and place a glass stone in a communal bowl of water as a symbolic act of each being held by the larger love that holds us all. All are welcome to participate, including those who are new to our congregation. Those online, you may type your joys and sorrows into the chat. Cindy Benton Groner from the Pastoral Care Team will come forward to help hold the space. Cindy will also be available for a few minutes after the service in the back corner of the sanctuary if you are in need of support or just want someone to listen. Those online, you can contact the pastoral care team at pastoral@uucharlottesville.org. Let us begin our ritual. This reading is titled My American Credo by Pauli Murray, and it was published in 1945. I am an American. I am a representative of a blended humanity, carrying Black, white, and Indigenous blood in my veins. I will resist every attempt to categorize me, to place me in some caste, or to assign me to some segregated pigeonhole. As an American, I inherit the magnificent tradition of an endless march towards freedom and toward the dignity of all. And though my country has not always loved me, in the words of the poet, I must confess I love this cultured hell which tests my strength. Loving it as I do, I am determined that my country shall take her place among nations as a moral leader. No law which imprisons my body or custom which wounds my spirit can stop me. And so, with my feet firmly rooted in the moral precepts of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and all the preachments of humanitarian tradition throughout the history of man, I take my stand against the institution of segregation. Segregation is a monster, dividing peoples, thwarting personality, breeding civil wars. Where segregation laws exist, I shall attack the constitutionality of those laws. If the refusal to abide by segregation statutes means imprisonment, I shall choose prison. If it means death, I can say only that my brothers and cousins are facing death every day. When others try to draw a circle to exclude me, I shall draw a larger circle to include them. When they speak out for the privileges of a puny group, I shall shout for the right of all mankind. With humility but pride, I shall offer one small life, for whatever it is worth, to fulfill the prophecy that all people are created equal. This is a community that offers its love and support to what is closest to our hearts. Another way we share our care for one another is in the sharing of our financial gifts with our community and our congregation. Our social action collection for the month of February is for Impact. Impact is a multi-faith coalition of more than 30 local congregations organizing to empower citizens to create significant change through direct action. Our congregation was one of the founding members of Impact, and the work of our members involved with Impact has helped build strong relationships across racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, and religious lines. Rachel, if you could please show us the social action slide for giving for those who would like to make a donation to Impact. In addition to giving online, if you'd like to make a donation to Impact with cash or check, please use the Social Action Collection envelopes here in the sanctuary and then place your offering in the collection plate. Now, please make sure that you make the checks out to the UU Congregation of Charlottesville and write Social Action Collection in the memo line. Along with our social action collection, we invite everyone to financially support the ministries and mission of this community. Through your pledges and your weekly Sunday morning offering together, our financial gifts support UUCville and enable us to put love into action. This is our shared ministry. During the music that follows, you can offer your financial support by using the text address or going to our website. You may place cash or checks once again inside the collection plates as they are passed. Let us now dedicate all of the many gifts that we share with one another by saying, "We accept your gifts with gratitude. May we use them wisely for the highest good." Our next reading is titled Song in a Weary Throat, also by Polly Murray. Hope is a crushed stalk between clenched fingers. Hope is a bird's wing broken by a stone. Hope is a word in a tuneless ditty, a word whispered with the wind, a dream of 40 acres and a mule, a cabin of one's own and a moment to rest, a name and a place for one's children and children's children at last. Hope is a song in a weary throat. Give me a song of hope and a world where I can sing it. Give me a song of faith and the people to believe in it. Give me a song of kindliness and a country where I can live it. Give me a song of hope and love and a brown girl's heart to hear it.
Thank you, Angela. Now I'd like to invite you to remain seated. We're going to sing together hymn number 1053, which is called How Could Anyone? The lyrics will be on the screen, so you can remain seated. Please join in singing hymn number 1053. Thank you so much, Scott. It's such a beautiful piece. Well, good morning again. It's so nice to be with you. Thank you so much for being here today. Angela, thank you as always for your wonderful help and support. Aksha, those were powerful words you shared. Andrew, that was a fabulous pledge drive testimonial. I'm just so joyful and happy about, in spite of all the things that Aksha talked about in the world, I'm just so joyful and happy to be here in this beloved community. And I'm also very, very glad to be sharing a service with you about the late Pauli Murray as part of our congregation's celebration of Black History Month. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that Pauli Murray is one of the most important people in the history of our country who very few people until recent years have ever heard of. Her ideas, her scholarship, and her activism played a pivotal role in two movements that forever transformed this nation, the civil rights movement and the women's rights movement. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Supreme Court's landmark decision, Brown v. Board of Education, a decision that made segregation in public education unconstitutional. But not many people are aware that a key legal argument that was at the center of the NAACP's brief to the Supreme Court justifying overturning segregation, that argument was first made in a law school paper that Pauli Murray wrote when she was a student at Howard Law School. I would also add, some years after the Brown decision, Andrew, this is really for you. There's a lot of law school stuff here. So some years after the Brown decision, a constitutional lawyer that you may have heard of, future Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, used arguments made in a law review article, again written by Pauli Murray, and arguing before the Supreme Court that the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment had to apply to women. The future Justice Ginsburg, needless to say, won that case and acknowledged her debt to Pauli Murray by adding Murray's name to the brief that she submitted to the court. Now, that's already one heck of a resume, I would say, but that is not even really the most important or compelling parts, I think, of Pauli Murray's, not only her legal career, but her extraordinary life and her amazing story. And what I think makes Murray's story so important for us today is that she lived her life and changed the world at the intersection of race, class, and gender. As Murray herself experienced time and again, so often our identities are used to demean, to dehumanize, and to divide the world into us and them, loved and unloved, privileged and oppressed. Pauli Murray understood that oppression and injustice take place at multiple and often interconnected levels. To give you just one example, Murray wrote powerfully about the myriad ways that race and gender were used to systematically marginalize African American women, creating a system of interlocking oppressions that she called Jane Crow. So let me back up and tell you a little bit more of Murray's remarkable story. She was born in Baltimore in 1910. Sadly and tragically, both of her parents died while she was a very young child. Pauli then moved to North Carolina, where she really grew up and was raised by her aunt Pauline, for whom she had been named. Now, growing up in the Deep South, Pauli most assuredly experienced what she called in the reading you heard, the monster of segregation on a daily basis. After the Supreme Court, and I think it was 1898, legalized segregation in Plessy v. Ferguson, North Carolina and states across the South passed one law after another that consigned African Americans to separate public facilities, attending separate and always poorly funded public schools, and to sitting in the back of buses and other forms of public transportation. From a very, very young age, Pauli Murray learned that separate is never equal. And that lesson, as you heard earlier, created in her an uncompromising determination to end segregation. Even as a child, she refused to cooperate with Jim Crow laws, often choosing to walk rather than riding segregated buses. And when it came time for Pauli to go to college, she did not want to attend a segregated college in North Carolina and instead made her way to New York City, where she graduated from Hunter College in 1933. Now, I want to pause Pauli's the chronology of her life story here, to talk about one of those intersecting identities that I mentioned earlier, Pauli Murray's gender identity. You see, Pauli's name, as I said before, was actually Pauline. She never wanted to be known as Pauline. And the reason she preferred the name Pauli stemmed from the fact that from a very, very young age, when she was a young girl, Pauli knew that she was male, born in a female assigned at birth body, that she was Paul rather than Pauline. Growing up, Pauli felt more at home doing things that were considered tomboyish, and she frequently dressed like a boy, like a male, and then later a young man. I think there's a couple of pictures there. Aunt Pauline called Pauli my little boy girl, and there are the images of Pauli as a younger person. Now, I wish I could tell you that Pauli Murray was able to live as the person that she was, an African-American man. But she couldn't, because the world she was born into had no acceptance, no understanding, no willingness to conceive of gender as anything but a category fixed by the sexual organs one happens to be born with. As one of her biographers pointed out, had Pauli been born a couple of generations later, she would have been able to openly embrace her true gender identity and could have undergone gender-affirming surgery. In fact, for much of her life, Pauli pleaded with physicians to prescribe for her male hormones. But she never received the hormones she pleaded for, and she was never able to live outwardly as a male. She always felt compelled to keep her true identity, her true self, hidden. Pauli lived as a woman, dressed as a woman, and always used female pronouns, which is why I'm referring to her as she and her, even though she was male. Even later in life, when Pauli wrote a highly acclaimed autobiography, which I'll show you the picture of the cover if you're looking for more things to read about her a little bit later in the service. Even in that autobiography, there's hardly a mention of her gender dysphoria and the intense emotional pain she experienced from not being able to live as the person she truly was. Now, I want to say that the more I've learned about Pauli Murray's struggles with gender identity and her passion for social justice, the more I'm reminded of another remarkable person and a former congregant of mine when I served a UU congregation in Ohio, whose name was Susan Davis. And I found a picture of Susan. That's Susan. She was a force of nature, I'll tell you. Susan was male assigned at birth, born in the late 1930s, and from a very young age knew that she was female. She told me once that her father would come into her room and see Harley, as her name was when she was born, wearing a sister's dresses and pajamas, and would very gently say, "No, those aren't yours." Thankfully for her, Susan was able to access the gender-affirming healthcare denied to Pauli Murray and lived the last quarter of her life no longer openly and proudly as a woman. I also mentioned that Susan was passionate about social justice, and as I reflect on the extraordinary passion that she and Pauli Murray had, I have no doubt that that passion, that determination came from their experiences of being marginalized. Of course, as Susan herself acknowledged, the oppression that she experienced never reached the level of that experienced by people of color, and especially trans people of color. But both Susan and Pauli Murray felt the repeated sting of being told, who you are is not acceptable. Keep quiet. Stay in your place. Thankfully, neither one of them kept quiet, and the world is so much better because of their courage and commitment. Now, there's so much more I could tell you about Pauli Murray. As you've already heard, she was a gifted writer and poet, published several volumes of poetry, and I will share another one of her poems as the closing words to our service. Pauli Murray was a social activist and protester who fought to desegregate the law school at the University of North Carolina, who organized protests and sit-ins during the 1940s at segregated restaurants in Washington, D.C., and who was arrested and imprisoned right here in Virginia for refusing to sit in the back of a Greyhound bus. That bold act of defiance made the press, made the media, and I think it's fair to say that that act of defiance, which was in the mid to late 1940s, was noticed and influenced later movements that you may have heard of, the Montgomery bus boycott and the Freedom Riders during the Civil Rights Movement. Now, I also should mention, and Pauli Murray is often remembered for this, that she had an interesting and decades-long friendship with none other than Eleanor Roosevelt, a friendship that began in typical Pauli Murray fashion when she wrote a scathing letter to the then First Lady, accusing FDR of caring more about fascism overseas than racism and white supremacy at home. That was true. It's a picture of the two of them. Now, let me give Mrs. Roosevelt some credit here. Rather than getting angry, saying throw that letter in the trash, she invited young Pauli Murray to tea. They soon became friends and lifelong correspondents, although their friendship would be tested from time to time by the stinging words that often filled Murray's letters. Mrs. Roosevelt was especially annoyed when Pauli published a poem during the Second World War lambasting FDR for only expressing regret about an outbreak of brutal police violence against the Black community in Detroit. But in spite of that, Mrs. Roosevelt never lost her respect for Pauli Murray's commitment to justice, and they remained good friends until Eleanor Roosevelt died in 1962. Let me say a word about Pauli Murray's later years, when she turned her attention to gender discrimination. Now, in addition to providing those legal arguments for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Murray served on an important presidential commission on the status of women and wrote another highly influential legal article that was used to justify adding discrimination on the basis of sex to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. 2 years later, Pauli Murray saw her dream of establishing an organization somewhat modeled on the NAACP for women. And so she helped found NOW, the National Organization for Women. Are you getting the picture here? Pauli Murray never stopped. She never stopped writing, never stopped resisting, never stopped showing up for justice. And just when it seemed she seemed to be settling into a life of writing and teaching, when she hit her late 50s and early 60s, oh no, Pauli Murray heard a call to ministry. And after graduating from seminary, she became the first African-American woman in the history of this country to ever be ordained as an Episcopal priest. And there's some picture of Pauli Murray. I don't know about you, but man, I would have loved to heard Pauli Murray preach from this pulpit right here. Now, would you believe that because of her age, I wonder if there was more to it than that. I kind of suspect there was. She was never allowed to serve as a parish priest, and instead spent most of her ministerial career visiting the sick and guest preaching for $25 a sermon. Let me say this, if Pauli Murray were still alive, I guarantee you she would preach from this pulpit and we'd pay her a heck of a lot more than $25. Now, although Pauli Murray died almost 40 years ago, there's no question that her legacy lives on. While few people knew of her during her lifetime or in the years immediately following her death, things are changing. Some exceptionally good books have been published about Murray in recent years, and there's also a really good documentary. I think I watched it on Prime Video, but I can't remember where it's streaming right now. And here's an image of 3 books that I have consulted and that I really like. So the one on the left is by Rosalind Rosenberg, Jane Crow. The one in the middle is a very well-known book by Patricia Bell Scott about her friendship with Eleanor Roosevelt. And that's Pauli Murray's autobiography, which was republished recently, her memoir with the title Song in a Weary Throat. All 3 of those books are good. And I just thought, you know, I know Unitarian Universalists are going to come up to me after the service and say, so what book should I read about? So there you go. So let me conclude by quoting again the words from Pauli's essay, An American Credo, that Angela read earlier. And I think this feels like a call to action for the times we are in right now. When others try to draw a circle to exclude, I shall draw a larger circle to include them. When they speak out for the privileges of a puny group, I shall shout for the rights of all humankind. With humility, but with pride, I shall offer one small life for whatever it is worth to fulfill the prophecy that all people are created equal. Thank you, Pauli Murray, for your blessed and wonderful life. May your memory and your wisdom always be a blessing. So friends, let's rise now in body or spirit. Let's join in singing hymn number 151, I Wish I Knew How. Please rise. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. You guys were fabulous. That was wonderful. I would say, just if you want to hear this song sung by someone else, the late Nina Simone made this song really, really famous, and there's lots of videos of it on YouTube, so check it out sometime. But you guys were pretty darn good, let me just say that. So let me close with this poem from Pauli Murray called Prophecy. I sing of a new America, separate from all others, yet enlarged and diminished by all others. I am the child of kings and serfs, freemen and slaves, having neither superiors nor inferiors, progeny of all colors, all cultures, all systems, all beliefs. I have been enslaved, but my spirit is unbound. I have been cast aside, but I sparkle in the darkness. I have been slain, but I live on the river of history. I seek no conquest, no wealth, no power, no revenge. I seek only discovery of the illimitable heights and depths of my own being. Friends, be well. Take good care of yourselves, of each other, and of the world. You know, in these challenging times, I'm going to carry a phrase with Pauli Murray around with me. Hope is a song in a weary throat. A lot of weary throats out there. Keep singing. Keep singing. Amen and blessed be.